When you put your effort into a relationship, a project, or a goal, you are investing your energy. You're not just involved intellectually, you are emotionally tied to what happens. Which means the real question becomes, where are you placing that emotional energy in the first place? To understand this, we first need to look at what emotional investing is. So according to investment advisors at Prism Planning Partners, emotional investment is when we react to the ups and downs instead of focusing on our long-term objectives. Where things like social media or bad news take over our thinking and influence our decisions. Another way to look at it is like this. Our emotions begin to resemble gambling. As we put more effort in, we might not see how much we're losing. And before we know it, we're burning energy that we don't have. A perfect example of this is drinking coffee. It doesn't actually give you energy. What it does is it blocks the signals that tell your brain that you're tired, which then later explains why we end up crashing out. So this is true for our emotions as well. We rarely think about what we're trading the energy for. So our decision making is guided by how something feels rather than what it produces. We often favor choices that are easier to implement. If you look at the costs and gains set out by Live Neuron Labs and their definition of what emotional investments are, then you'll see that the observation is that we do not use statements like, I feel good about this, for no reason. It's all psychological, that as they put so well, decision making is fundamentally about predicting which options will improve our emotional state the most. And usually we want to feel better in the present moment, in the now. So we're terrible at making future gains decisions because if it requires sacrifices now, we're easier at making those decisions that favor what happens in the moment, the reward in the moment. So they use an example of milkshakes, that we don't think about diabetes from 10 years. We would much prefer to have the milkshake now. So when a moment requires a decision, it also requires energy. So how do we look at our stocks of emotional energy? Well, we need to look at how we're investing and spending all our energy, and whether it's going on our problems or in fact we're investing into emotional things like a bank account, where our choices are determining the gains or losses of the outcome. When you realize how closely emotions and finances are linked, you can begin to see how every action and reaction becomes either a deposit or a withdrawal on your resources. Think of it like water in a reservoir. When energy drains faster than it is replenished, the level drops. Eventually, there'll be nothing left to draw from. Or you can think of a phone battery. When there are too many apps running in the background, it drains quickly, and it raises a simple but important question. Is this emotional expense worth something? First, we need to recognize something important. It is our responsibility to take care of our own energy. There is a belief worth challenging here. The belief that we are helpless in creating our own reality. In many cases, the opposite is closer to the truth. Before we can even talk about better emotional returns, we must recognize our energy is not just something that disappears into the day. It is constantly being directed somewhere. Every conversation, frustration, or problem we revisit in our minds requires a portion of that energy. Over time, the places where we repeatedly spend our energy shape our experiences. The more energy we pour into a situation, the more influence it tends to have over our time, our thinking, and our emotional state. The gains begin to start when we pay attention to where that energy is being directed. Because once we see that clearly, we can begin deciding whether that energy is being spent or invested. So how do we choose wisely where the energy goes? Well, we need to be consciously aware. We need to be able to stop, step back, and think, hang on, do I really want to invest this kind of energy here? Is this a worthwhile investment, or is it more likely to have no real upside? So you can think of it like fast food. Yeah, you can eat it, but is it going to be nutritious? So every emotional choice you make, if you start to make it like a savvy investor, you would probably spend wisely, let your returns compound, and create a sustainable business and life that doesn't leave you bankrupt. So with all of that in mind, where will you invest your next emotional dollar? I appreciate you watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, please give this video a like. And if you're keen to learn more about how behavior in others, systems for success, and how personal development and businesses intersect, subscribe to my newsletter, where I send out in-depth emails weekly. Link to that will be in the description below. Until our next encounter, look after yourselves.